today's show, you may know her as a successful chef, author, and cheerful television host. But a profound fear almost ruined Paula Deen's life. She'll share her surprising story.
Just the thought of leaving the house petrified me. I'd have panic attacks, and you just know that you're fixing to have a heart attack.
Then, why do we fear those who are different from us? Can rival cultures learn to live together in harmony? Well, at Seeds of Peace, the answer is yes.
Sometimes I felt that I can't talk to them, I can't even to look in their face. And sometimes I felt like they are my best friends.
And he was a world-class athlete, but Sherre was hiding a big secret. Oh, and if it got out, he feared it was going to destroy his whole world. So pour yourself another cup of coffee. I'm Naomi Judd, and it's a brand new morning.
Every day's a new day. Every day's a new way to help somebody who needs somebody like you. There's a power you can pass along to heal a heart and make it strong. There's hope with every dawn. Every day's a new day.
I love you guys. So many of you are making faces at me trying to make me laugh while I was waiting back there. This morning, we're going to talk about what scares us. Boo! No, not that. And we're going to figure out what it is that we dread and how we can avoid it. Now, I love words, and I think the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. Isn't that cool? False evidence appearing real. Fear is a dispensable parasite on our brains, and it's really the greatest inhibitor of our spirits. So today we're going to find out that most of the things that we're afraid of, they're not real at all. Some of our fears come from what we don't know, like other people who just seem different from us. So that leads us into our first story. Imagine if there was a place where people from all races, colors, and creeds, if they just left their judgments at home and decided to spend quality time in the here and now, in the present together. There's such a place, and it's called Seeds of Peace International, and it is teaching our young folks not to fear each other, but to see how much alike we really are. Take a look at this.
I know that Jews are suffering because of suicide bombers, but I mean, that's the only thing they suffer from. We suffer from bombardments of F-16 and soldiers who face rocks with guns.
For me, I have a mission to try to convince Jews of some points that we Palestinians believe in and which I'm absolutely sure they're facts.
I think that Israel cannot negotiate with Palestinians because when you go to negotiation, first step is noticing that both of the sides are ready to negotiate, to really negotiate, like to give and to get. How can we talk with people that murder us? Because they can do a lot of things to prevent our attacks, but they don't. Why do the Palestinians think that by killing and terrorizing innocent people, they will achieve something? They're doing it for 30 years and they didn't get nothing.
This is the hard solution. I mean, going and bombing houses is really easy, but coming here and really expressing feelings and getting hurt every day is the hard thing.
The criticism that, okay, here's the idyllic woods of Maine and it's all fine and great here, I think it wouldn't be possible for that first step to begin over there. But for many, many of the kids, the real work only begins when they get back home. And it's a lot harder for them back home. It's immensely more challenging. It's immensely more difficult. What they're putting at stake is being made to feel like they've betrayed their people, being called names, possibly physical danger.
I was told by my teacher that there is a camp, Seeds of Peace, and they bring children from different countries where conflicts are, and they try to remove the hatred because they think in future they will be the leaders of their countries. So I really tried hard to be a participant, and it was a very hard competition. It's a cutthroat competition. I really felt proud that, oh yes, I am something. And it was the glorious moment of my life when I heard that Fahad Ali Kazmi has been chosen for the Seas of Peace camp.
Do you really think that by going to Israel and exploding yourself in a coffee shop, that will bring you your piece of land? You really believe that by exploding a 2-month-old baby, that will help you?
And my major experience affected me was a couple of months ago. There was in an explosion, a suicide bombing in Jerusalem. I was in an ice cream store, and there was an explosion right before I was about to go out. I saw people lying down on the ground, and you see a lot of blood and people screaming their guts out because they have no idea what to do. I was too terrified to move because I was afraid that there was going to be another one. I was with a friend of mine. I was wearing my Swedes of Peace sweatshirt. Eventually, I got to the conclusion that we have to go on and try to build peace in the region. I don't want my children to experience these sort of things. I don't want them to walk down the street and just find out that there was an explosion and smell the gunpowder on themselves. And, well, I don't want them to experience that.
You got a chance, take it. Take it. Don't listen to some of these adults. It's your mind. It's your heart. Use them. Have a little guts. Shake hands with somebody who's different. It's not their fault what's going on over where you live. It's not that kid's fault.
When people would say that they were taught to hate, I would be like, come on, I mean, how serious is that? But when I met Palestinians who were really like, no, we just want them to die. We don't like them. I don't want to live side by side with an Israeli. And then the Israelis would be like, no, it's our land. It's our right. We've earned it. And I was really surprised to see that the stereotypes that I might read about actually exist.
I'm not sure that I passed this experience in the best way. Sometimes I felt that I can't talk to them, I can't even to look in their face, and sometimes I felt like they are my best friend. I'm not sure that I will ever understand them completely, but I want to be here next year.
With me now are my sidekicks. Rabbi, that means she's Jewish, Sherre Hirsch.
And I think it's the most awesome organization.
I know, I couldn't help but watching your body language during this. And you're pregnant too, so, well, you've got a lot invested in this. And Reverend Otis Moss, you know, the thing that struck me was that these are young people. If we get to these kids now, I mean, otherwise, some of the kids might become the suicide bombers.
And one summer can change their life. And what's so amazing about this organization is they go there when they're teens, but then the program goes on and on and on.
They come back.
The girls that are coming on today, I should say young women, they're amazing. They're in their 20s, they're going to the Army. And if you change one life, you can change 1,000.
And every social movement has always been first young people.
Yeah.
Youth
The
have
impressionable
organized.
minds.
Yes.
I'm also proud of them.
I am too.
I mean, you have to know that I've been to Israel so many times, Naomi, and you go to Israel, and everywhere you go, it's like the enemy is the Palestinians. And these kids are taking such an act of courage at 16 years old to go out there and just say, okay, like he was saying on the tape, be courageous, do it differently.
Right.
And
Use
these
your
kids
gut.
are. Yeah.
And we spend
Think for yourself.
so many resources, so much money on war, on how do we create conflict, but we don't have a lot of resources that go to developing peace.
I love what Jacques Cousteau, the famous oceanographer, said right before he passed. Of course, he was a great man of peace. He said, if I could have one last wish, it would be that the children of the world all trade places just for one day. Well, what you saw earlier on this wonderful tape was part of a longer documentary that can be seen on Hallmark Channel. So just check out our website, faithstream.com. Yeah, I want to see the whole thing now.
Amazing.
For the dates and the times of it. And Do you think Seeds of Peace has a lasting effect on those kids that were there? Well, we're going to get to hear from some former campers as soon as we come back. And then later on, we've got the courageous story of TV chef Paula Deen. We're going to learn about the completely unreasonable fear that she decided to face head on. Hello, welcome back. We've been looking at a story of the Seeds of Peace program that teaches teens from all different cultures, mutual respect and understanding. So right now we're going to get to meet two of the young women who attended in the past. Please welcome Riya Yosef and then Moore Goshen. Am I saying that right? We'll start with you, Moore. Tell us your background and what you learned at Seeds of Peace camp.
Well, so I'm from Israel, and I went to Seeds of Peace as part of the Israel delegation when I was 15. And my family, they all live in Israel. My parents, my mom was born in Israel, my father was born in Yemen. And
did you witness violence when you were growing up there?
Well, when I was in 9th grade, I lost my neighbor. He died in a terror attack, and I went to camp with a strong feeling of anger, and I need to prove something. And then you go to camp and you realize that everyone that goes there have something to prove too. And they're like with the same feelings that I went, that so many people died from the wrong reasons. The other side has the exact same feelings, and they can complain, and they have the same. We all share the same. We all complain about the same things.
How about you, Riya?
I'm Palestinian. I lived in Ramallah, and my mom's from the West Bank, and that's where I grew up.
Did you witness any violence ever while you were growing up?
Of course, you can't live in the Middle East and not witness violence. It's everywhere, in the streets, everywhere.
I mean, you say that, so, well, of course. You know, just like, I've never seen anything. So
well, to us, it's normal. It becomes a daily thing. When I go to school, I have to cross checkpoints where there are Israeli soldiers. That's every day to me. And sometimes tanks are in the streets all the time. It's just normal, you know? And just to hear that your neighbor was shot, that this person was injured, your mom's friend's son got killed, it's normal over there.
So your interaction with the enemy, the Israelis, the Jews, is really at checkpoints.
Checkpoints. The only Israelis I knew were soldiers.
Or
and so I'd see them, tanks, guns, airplanes, missiles.
Hollering at you through megaphones.
And it was horrible. A lot of humiliation. We'd have to wait at the checkpoint to just cross to the other side in the rain for hours, when there was no need for it. Sometimes people think checkpoints are there for security reasons, but we're not checked. No one searches us or anything. We just wait for hours, and after a few hours in the rain or in the sun, we're allowed to pass without being searched or anything. So that's the only thing I saw. I saw humiliation, I saw hatred from the soldiers, and that's why a lot of people start hating the other side, or the Israelis, just because they only see soldiers.
Right. Or they only hear the shelling or the bombs going off. What was your experience like in Maine at this camp?
I wanted to go there for one reason. I wanted to tell the Israelis and show them what they're doing to us, you know? And I didn't care about listening to what the other side is telling me. I just wanted to tell them, this is what you're doing to us. I'm afraid of you, and that's why I went to camp.
And it works the same way. We go there with a very, before camp, we go through a 4-day seminar in Jerusalem with the Minister of Education, chose us as a delegation that will go and represent Israel. And we all go there, and before camp, we study the facts and we learn the history. And that's what we want to do. We want to go and prepare ourselves to argue, to fight, to protect our country, to be...
You're telling me you didn't go there to listen or to learn. You went there to talk
to
And to
represent your
defend.
country, to protect
To
your
me, it was a chance to get my voice heard.
Yeah. And what happened? What unexpected lessons did you learn?
What happened? Do you want to start?
Yeah, you go there, and it's you prepared yourself so well for the argument, and then you go there, and it's a very special summer camp, but it's a summer camp, and you go there, and you have a dialogue session every day for 3 hours.
And what?
Dialogue session.
Dialogue
Right.
session.
You have to remember that when you do those dialogues, it's not the way you thought it will be, not with those Palestinians that you don't know, but with people that eat with you in the same table, and with people that play sports with you. And for me, it was really hard to change my attitude from like talking to this enemy foreign Palestinian than talking to my team member in soccer, because that's the key. That's what Seeds does. It brings you together. It in a way actually force you to know the people. And even though a lot of time you disagree, most of the topics, most of the dialogue sessions are very hard. You disagree, you can disagree. There are a lot of things that Riya and I can talk about and disagree, but it's not about the agreeing. It's not, you don't have to agree. It's just about talking and trying and making friendships and having the conversation.
But that's the way it is in families. Sometimes you agree to disagree. Did you face any fears while you were there?
After a few hours of being in the plane, and before that on the checkpoint to get to the airport, and just hours, I was so tired. I get to Maine and I say, okay, I want to sleep now. So I go to my bunk, and there are 10 beds in the bunk, and I get ready to go to sleep, and then I sit on my bed and I'm exhausted. I look at this side, and the girl next to me is an Israeli, and I'm like, oh my God. I look at the other side, another Israeli, and I'm tired. I don't know what to do. I need to sleep. And it was really scary to have an Israeli sleeping next to you on each side of the bed.
Ooh.
It's scary.
So what did that experience of being at Seeds of Peace Camp teach you?
It made me think differently, and you care more. You want to talk, you want to speak up, you want to say, because you realize that there's a lot to say and there's a lot to do.
Riya?
Well, just before the show, we actually tried to call my sister who lives in Palestine because she's Moore's best friend. From camp. And so that's what happens.
Your sister is now her best friend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's my best friend from camp. And we spent our whole summer, and the second time we went to camp, we spent our whole summer together.
Our audience is grinning from ear to ear because they realize you all are the next generation, and this has given us all a little bit of hope. Riya, we'll close with the thought that you said that you had to sleep the first night surrounded by Israelis. Seeds of Peace Camp is not just helping us live together globally, but to even be able to live in the same home. That's what I'm going to take away from this. Thank you all, and please keep going back to that camp. Well, up next, she certainly makes things look very easy in the kitchen, but nothing has ever come easy for Paula Deen. You're going to see how she came to understand that she could never succeed until she faced her crippling fear. And then later on, most of us might be scared to step into a football field, but former NFL great Sherre had a very different fear. His story is going to be ahead on Naomi's New Morning. Glad my sidekicks are back. Of course, we've got Reverend Otis Moss and Rabbi Sherre Hirsch. I just said your sidekicks. I just saw the baby kick.
You did?
You just saw the baby kick you in the side.
I feel like it just started. It started in the last week. But wait, it gets you later. You can see like a foot come out. I'm proud of my belly. I got to show it to the world. I'm very proud.
Okay, now we're doing a show. Many of you may know Paula Deen, the great chef from her hit show, Paula Deen's Home Cooking. But today, you're going to learn something I bet you didn't know about Miss Paula. We're going to see how Paula faced a demon and then never looked back. Check it out.
The American dream still exists in this country. It's there for you. But there's only one catch. You have to work for it. I had lived this perfect teenage and childhood with my parents and my brother, and then all of a sudden they were dead. It was almost at that moment I quit growing. I was so frightened of death. I was so frightened that I was going to die and leave my children and my brother, or one of them was going to die.
I have a pretty vivid memory of Mom hyperventilating on front porch in an apartment that we lived in Albany. Literally breathing into a brown paper bag.
Just the thought of leaving the house petrified me. I'd have panic attacks, and you just know that you're fixing to have a heart attack.
She saw it on Donahue one day. She finally had a name for what was going on with her, and it was agoraphobia.
And the rosemary's flowering. I can show you right where I was standing when everything became clear to me. It was like I reached over and flipped on a light switch. And the serenity prayer went through my mind. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I understood what that serenity prayer said. I understood what I was praying for. Just accepting little things that you have no control over makes your life so much better and so much more peaceful. The intense fear that I had felt for 20 years did not stop me. In fact, it was the driving force that started me. I realized that I had no talent, but I was lucky enough to be born into a family that was really, really good cooks. And I started this business with $200, and I can almost tell you to the penny what I spent it on.
And we had no uniforms, no business license, no business plan. And we had a wicker basket of food. We'd go out and cold knock on doors and try to sell lunch.
You've heard the old saying, life begins at 40. My life began at 42 years old.
The Richards party here?
Can you believe that I have been able to turn that little $200 business? I failed algebra, I failed math, I failed everything to do with numbers. But I have managed to take that $200 and turn it into a very comfortable amount. If I leave nothing else in this world, I hope that I leave hope, because you truly can. You can do anything that you set your mind to.
Love Paula. Proud to call her a friend. And you were saying?
Yeah, I've tried to go to the restaurant several times. It's always packed. So, Paul, if you're out there, I want to go to the restaurant. I want to go to the restaurant.
We're promoting you. We're promoting you. What she's saying is she had panic attacks, and she started cooking in her kitchen and had her two boys who are very good looking and great guys. And that was her brother, who's sort of the cashier there. They started sending out lunches, and that's how she started. But she had a fear of, it was called agoraphobia, a fear of going out in public. I had it too. You can,
did?
Really? Yeah, severely, and you can get over it. You can actually go to the panic. Well, it's called the Anxiety Disorder Association of America. I'll put it on the website. But she completely faced her fear, and until you face it, it's always just going to be there.
How long did you deal with it?
I got it when I had Hep C, and I had it severely for about 2 years. But you can use medication and talk therapy and go to...
And that's how you worked through it?
Yeah, but it's a booger. It's real, but it's treatable. It's very real, but it's very treatable. And Paul and I have talked about this together. But that's what you first have to do is face your fear, and like they said, you have to name it, and then you can start the process. You had a fear.
Well, you're not going to believe this, Otis and Naomi, but I did not want to be a pulpit rabbi because I was afraid of speaking in front of large groups of people, like 1,500 and 2,000. And when I got my first job at Sinai, the average attendance is 2,000 people. And I remember sitting there, standing on the pulpit, my hands sweating, like moving my toes, and I would get this terrible case of the giggles. And I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then afterwards, I think what helped me was that afterwards I realized it's not about me. If I'm so focused on everybody looking at me, well, guess what? I'm just not all that great. But when I actually was about carrying the message and really being about Torah and Judaism, then I started to love it and have a great time with it. And people always say, you don't look nervous at all. But meantime, I was very nervous to begin.
The giggling rabbi.
I was always giggling.
So
and
that's
you know
how you
what?
got comfortable, was giggling.
Well, no, that's how I had to get rid of the giggling.
Okay.
I mean, it was like a not, because it's,
But didn't you mention before that sometimes you use it to get comfortable sometimes?
yeah, just to relax a little bit.
all right.
I mean, because I am a little of the devil.
But yeah, we noticed.
Yeah.
But speaking in public is the number one phobia.
Is it?
It's above fear of dying, fear of sharks, cancer, fire, and everything else. Fear of speaking in public.
Were you ever afraid of speaking in public?
No, it's not, that hasn't been a real issue. I mean, when I'm in a large setting, like recently I was in Hampton, Virginia, about 10,000 people. My father and I were speaking. That was difficult.
Right.
But that hasn't been. I had a serious issue of confrontation when I was little. I had an experience where I went to camp. I was the only African-American child at this camp my parents sent me to. And the camp had several young people that came from Mexico, but what I didn't know was that there were a group of very wealthy, most of them white, young people that had been coming there, and they marginalized everybody of color. And so they had two groups, Sue and Chip, and we would compete every day. And so I was the leader of the Chip group, had all these young people from Mexico. Didn't understand what they were saying. They didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish. But we kicked the Sues behind. I just wanted you to know. I mean, it just helped me so much overcome a lot of my fear of confrontation, because the kinds of words that I would hear every single day about who I was, a 10-year-old child.
At camp?
So many racist epithets, it would be unbelievable to me, to the Mexican young kids. And so we overcame it by banding together and confronting it through a variety of different ways.
And it made you less fearful?
Yeah, it did. Because I knew I could stand up to him, and I knew I could beat him too. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Well, straight ahead, he was a star of on the football fields of the NFL. But Isara Tuaholo was afraid that he was going to lose it all if his teammates learned about his private life off the field. His secret is out when we come back with you. And welcome back. Today we're talking about facing our fears. Now, as a defensive linebacker in the NFL for 9 years, my next guest surely wasn't afraid of a big old lineman, but he was afraid that his secret was going to be revealed. Please welcome former NFL great Isara Tuaholo. Did I say it right?
Yes, thank you very much.
God, you've got a beautiful smile. Look at this ring. Is that Super Bowl ring?
Yeah, it's the runner-up. When you lose the Super Bowl, you get this.
Boy, that would be a bracelet to me. Holy smoke, look at the size of those hands. Boy, those hands could roll a lot of biscuits. Tell us what your secret was.
My secret was that I was a 6'3", 300-pound gay former NFL player.
And when did you realize you were gay?
You know, I realized when I was gay when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I remember hearing hearing my friends tease this kid on the playground. And I asked my friend, what are you calling him? And he said, Mahu. And I said, what is that? And he told me, exactly, it means faggot or queer. It means that he wants to play with his sister's dolls or play dress up. And you know, what I saw is I saw a little bit of myself in that child, because I like to play with my sister's dolls. I wanted to play dress up when they weren't looking, or I wanted that easy bake oven. So
I read the book.
Yeah, I saw a part of me in that child, and what happened was, what I saw was hate, and I saw rage, the way they were treating this kid. And I tell people that's the day when I took that child within me and I threw him in a closet. And that's the day when I started living that double life, where I had to be bigger or stronger or faster so no one would know that a Sherre Tuaola was gay. So.
I believe, as you do, that people are born gay.
Most definitely.
Most definitely.
I mean, if that argument would hold water if maybe there were maybe 10 or 20 gay people in this world, but we're talking millions of people. You know, I didn't wake up one day deciding that, you know, I wanted to be discriminated against. You know, and it would have been a so much easier time for me, you know, being in the NFL and the limelight, if, you know, if it was a choice to have a woman by my side. But it's not. I believe I was born this way.
Now, you were raised in a religious home, but then when you joined the NFL, they have what they call Champions for Christ?
Yes, yes. You know, I am a Christian.
Right.
You know, I am a Christian, and that just happens to be gay. People don't, you know, but being a Christian, you know, people should know and stuff that we're not perfect. And the Bible says we all fall short of the glory of God, meaning that we're all sinners. Yes, and I grew up in a Pentecostal Assembly of God church, and
boy, you can pick them, can't you?
Exactly. So, you know, many times of hearing my pastor preach about, you know, homosexuality and how I would burn in a lake of fire, and as a child listening to that and running home and falling to my knees and asking God to please take away this curse that he said I had. And then my prayers turned into, well, take this curse away or take my life. But I tell you what, he didn't.
But you were suicidal.
Exact, many times, many times. Because of the hate.
Religious thing.
Because of the religion, because of the hateful things I would hear in society. And, you know, and going to Jacksonville and playing for a football team that was very much religious, it was very difficult for me to hear so many of those things, especially when they would preach on homosexuality. Someone that who I was truly as a person. I know God loves me.
Let's talk about the hypocrisy of the Champions for Christ, but also what was going on. There were two cliques. There were the Champions for Christ guys. Then there were the testosterone-driven guys that were cheating on their wives with the groupies and doing drugs.
You know what? And yeah, and that's the thing that was, you know, that was difficult for me, and to not only hear some negative things about homosexuality, but also seeing a different culture of that limelight of, you know, the guys cheating on their wives, and not all of them, but, you know, and just, you know, doing drugs and getting busted, and just to know that if I would have came out to them, that I would be the one kicked out, or I would be the one who got hurt or beat up or something like that because of who I truly was.
And they also had enormous egos.
Yes.
And I've always felt that you're a very humble man who's grateful for your blessings.
Most definitely. I'm a servant of God. I'm not anything else. I'm not a role model, or I'm not a leader. I'm just playing the cards that was dealt to me, and that's an incredible thing.
Now tell us about, you're living in Minnesota now, and you have a partner, a life partner, and you've adopted 2 little Samoan kids.
Yes, Mitchell and Michelle. We got them at a week old, and I tell you, being a father is the most incredible thing for me. I mean,
he's crying and he's 6'3". And little babies can bring you to your knees, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I tell you, being a father is everything that I dreamt of and even more. You know, I'm the youngest of 8 children, and I've always had a sense of family. I've always wanted a family, and to have these kids and to know that everything positive in my life is going to be showered onto them is incredible. But the icing on the cake for me is that I'll be able to tell my war stories to my grandchildren, and that's incredible.
What are you going to tell them about how you faced your fear and how you came out and started being who you truly are?
You know, that's one of the great things about being out, is that we're able to raise these children in the open. And as the questions come in, we're going to explain it to them. Being in the closet, we wouldn't be able to do that. Our kids are going to be raised with a lot of love. They're also going to be raised that there's.
See that.
Yeah, we're not living in the eras of the cleavers anymore. There's so many diversity in this world. They're going to know that there's different types of family. One with a single parent mother, single parent father, 2 daddies, 2 mommy, and the traditional.
Yeah, you say in here that you didn't want to be the uncle and your partner
exactly.
the dad. You play football, you're a dad, you sing. You wrote this very moving book. Why?
I get thousands of emails from people around the world, and it's incredible to hear their stories and the struggles that they've gone through, and to see that we're so similar in so many ways. A lot of them has to deal with committing suicide or wanting to commit suicide. So I wrote this book to inspire people, and basically I wrote this book to save lives.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, the crew at the Day One Diner isn't afraid to tackle any subject either. We're going to see what they've got cooking down there when we come back. Stirring it up today. Keep those cards and letters coming.
They're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
I can hear the phones ringing. Well, we're talking about, on a serious note, we're talking about eliminating that parasite of fear that just feeds on our insecurities. I say that insecurities are like negatives. They develop in the dark. So at the Day One Diner, what'd you guys talk about?
We talked about what happens when you die and where do you go? What happens? And there's some interesting statements made by my buddy over here, along with her other buddy, that they kind of go at it.
Yeah, well,
something controversial.
No,
we always
no,
have like
not
a little
Sherre,
debate between, the Jew versus,
It's a great, it's a great
well,
relationship that they
let's
have.
see the Day One Diner.
Yeah.
What do you say to your parishioners when people ask you what happens when you die? And what kind of questions do people ask when they're dealing with and struggling with the grief of losing someone they love dearly?
People that are dying really will ask you that in different ways, Otis, but everyone really does want to know what happens when I die. And of course, their family, after a loved one departs, wonder where did they go? What happened? Why are they not here anymore? Ultimately, of course, in our tradition, we go to the Scripture. We go to the Bible, both to the Old Testament and the New Testament, to see what God says about what happens when we die.
And that's your truth. We say we're resurrected, and we pray for it 3 times a day. And I'm not saying that we're resurrected into being a cow, but we live on in the hearts and the minds of the people that are our legacy.
You don't believe that
so
you
it's a
live
memory of an that's the afterlife would be memory?
Well, I can't tell you what happens after we die. I mean, I'd like to believe that we
or you're
reconnect
not comfortable saying it?
Yeah, no, I mean...
Sherry, I think you're right from the standpoint of we ourselves have not died, so we've not had that experience. Right. But we do depend upon the tradition and the testimonies of those who we believe from the Christian standpoint. Jesus is our hope, is our example of life after death. But I believe we come from God, and it is to God we shall return. What all happens in that transition in the middle, we don't know. It is yet mystery.
But what do you say to the living, to those who are left behind after someone dies? What are the questions that they ask? Scott, I know you've experienced this.
Right. One of the things that I say is God never ever lost a grip on your loved one. And I think that's an amazing testimony that faithful people have about who God is. Whatever heaven is like, God has a grip on us. I think it's also important to talk with people. I find people have a lot of questions about this body that's right there.
That's right.
Thomas Lynch, who's a writer, undertaker up in Michigan, wonderful author, tells a story about a young Episcopalian clergy person who's standing at this moment when this mother is grieving the death of her daughter, and he says to her, trying to comfort her, don't worry, honey, it's just a shell. And she turns around and decks him and says, I'll tell you when it's just a shell. Until I say otherwise, that's my daughter. And I spent a lot of time, I think we got freaked out in America about touching bodies, bathing bodies, caring for them the way they did in biblical times after the deceased, perfuming them. We want them at a distance. We want them taken away. They're just a shell, but they're not. There's something that we physically were with, that hugged on us and that held us on their lap, and that was amazing, that loved us, And these bodies, I think we need to renew our...
And there used to be a tradition in the South of bringing the bodies to the home.
Bring them to the home and digging the graves, the grave digging guilds in the churches.
Yeah, but again, this, is the power of New Testament teaching is that, yes, you've moved out. They're not there.
Right.
But God promises to redeem every part of us, including our body, which Scripture teaches in the New Testament that there will be a physical resurrection of the dead.
So much of Judaism is focused on this life and what we do, and not in the afterlife because it's unknown. I mean, I started to say, Billy, earlier that when my father passed away, we were burying him, and I was looking at the grave, and I started to bawl. From like a very visceral place, and I could see him being met by his parents and his grandparents as like a vision, and I thought, okay, now I'm actually losing it. But in that moment, I realized that maybe there was Olam Haba. Maybe there was a world to come in which we reconnect with someone.
But I think there also, in what you're speaking of, both of you, that there is a great hope that's connected when you have the privilege to be around people who are passing away.
Yes.
And those who work hospice care, people that have to deal with death on an ongoing basis, have a great respect for the mystery that moves from this life to the next life. I had the experience of when my grandmother was in a hospice, and she passed away with such peace, but she had such incredible confidence that she knew that she was moving from one place to another place. And I think that that's also a unique gift that people are given.
We don't talk about it much, Otis, but I have been there when there was not that peace. And that disturbs you too.
Yes.
Because there is a difference. If you know and your faith is strong on what's going to happen after you die versus if not.
Well, let's wrap this up. Give me final thoughts.
Our life belongs to God. It is from God we have come, and it is to God we shall return.
All right.
Amen.
All right.
I think choose this life. Spend your time thinking about what you're doing here now, and spend less time thinking about what you do when you die.
Well, we didn't get a final thought from you.
Well, I just think that, especially when we're talking about this issue, is that we have confidence in what God is going to do for us not only now, but in the future.
Well, I'm a Christian like you, and I think the thing that separates Christianity from all the other world's great religions is Jesus. We believe that he was the Son of God and that he died and arose, and so we believe in the resurrection.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
Wow, what a comfort that is.
I'm just sitting there listening because I can't even relate to that, because for me, it's so much about this life. And I don't know. I mean, I said it on the tape. I just don't know what happens.
It's a great mystery.
Right.
It is. And I feel like to spend time worrying about it, and, and I've been with people at the time of death, and sometimes it's a very frightening moment. But more often than not, it's a very peaceful moment.
And a very mysterious moment.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the unique things. I think that's one of the wonderful things about especially people who are very much connected to what's happening in nature. You always understand that death is a natural part of life.
And God gives us life, and God takes life.
I believe that I've caught babies, and I've had people die in my arms. I believe birth and death are both just passages into eternity. So if you have a subject that you want discussed, if you have a strong opinion, or if you disagree with us, please let us know about it. Visit our website, faithstreams.com, and click on message board. We want to hear. That's what we're doing here. We're all about bringing things out into the light and discussing them. So
Figuring it out.
go ahead and talk among yourselves. We'll be right back. still here with Sherre Hirsch and Otis Moss talking about, we've been talking the whole show about facing our fears. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think one thing, you have to face it in order to fix it. And I think that's the basic idea about dealing with any fear.
Well, and I also thought about Paula Deen. Her greatest fear became her strength.
Yes.
And who knows what your greatest fear could be your strongest asset. So you got to sometimes face it. And that's what God says in the Bible.
I still want to go to a restaurant, too.
I'm going with you.
I want to go.
I want pecan pie, I want grits, I want the full thing.
That's right.
I want
Peach
real
cobbler.
Southern food.
Greens. Sweet potatoes.
Well, thank you all so much for weighing in,
Wait,
all
he's
of you.
listing the whole menu.
Otis and Sherre, and of course all of our guests today. And I hope that in our stories, in our disagreements, and our opinions, that there was something in there that's going to help you to kind of face up to whatever your fear is. First of all, you got to identify it. Fear is worrying about stuff that hadn't even happened. It's like sitting in a rocking chair, you know, it keeps you busy, gives you something to do for a minute, but doesn't get you anywhere. Well, we've had a lot of real folks on today that talked about their fear, and I hope you realize that you can face yours too. If you think, though, that your fear has gotten out of control, please don't waste another minute. Seek some professional help. It's a proactive choice that could heal your life. And remember, my mind is always open. My door is never shut. And there's always going to be room for you right here at my table.